Hello, everybody. Welcome to the National Parents Union Nightly Restorative Practice. Nightly restorative check-in. I'm sorry, I'm tired today. I'm so happy that you're with us tonight. Today is Monday, February 1st, 2021. So I want to say happy February to everybody. As a reminder, the National Parents Union is always open for membership. Our membership is free, both for individual and for partners. Membership includes you receiving our email with all of the information. We have really great stuff that's happening. We have trainings, we have our town hall. We have a great town hall planned for you this February. I want to say hello to my aunt, Hayoli, who's watching tonight as she does every show. I think she's missed one or two shows. So with that, I just wanted to take a minute to remind everybody, please become a member of the National Parents Union. And please, we're here for you. And so all of the support, all of the programming, the workshops, the training, it is for our parents. And this is, hi, so it looks like it's a family show today. That's my baby. Thank you, Mama. I didn't realize until I said happy February to our guest that today was February and I'm in all red. So here I am celebrating and not even knowing it. So with that, I've already introduced you to two of my family members. I am your host, Marisol Quevedo de Rucha. I am the very proud mom of Camerina and Emilia and Sofia. I am the very proud daughter to Irma Castro and Abraham Quevedo. I am the grandmother to Isabela Luna and Cynthia Iliana, with a grandson who will be born, if everything goes well. He's scheduled to be delivered on February 18th, so in 17 days. And I am the very proud granddaughter of Camerina, Alejandro, Carmen, and Francisco. And as always, I introduce myself that way and I give you a little bit of an explanation for this reason. I think it's very important for me to remind myself that every space that I enter as the product of so much love and so much wisdom and so much pain and so much trauma and so much learning. And I am the product of those who have poured into me, both my ancestors who have never held me, those who have, my elders, those that I currently walk with shoulder to shoulder in this life, and those that are coming after me. And I introduce in myself in that way to ground me and remind me of who I am and where I come from. And that this voice that you hear is the voice that is the answer to prayers that were said in hopes and dreams way before any of us existed, but also as a recognition that I carry the hopes and dreams for our future ancestors. And so it's with a lot of pride and honor that I introduce myself in that way, because it's a reminder that this work, this space is so much bigger than I am, and that this is not about me. And so I want to do right by all of those who have poured into me and all of those who are coming after me. So my hope in sharing that is that people will consider thinking about their relatives, their ancestors, their loved ones in the spaces that they enter. And whether you choose to introduce yourself in that way or not, but just carrying that is something that's very grounding for me. So we practice here at our nightly restorative practices. We have a breathing technique that we do. So it's called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. We inhale for 4 seconds, we hold for 7, and we release for 8. And I count down the breathing for us. So all you have to do is rest, relax, and breathe. And we do this 4 times. So we do 4 rounds of 4, inhale, 7, hold, 8, release. And I do the counting. We do this to really prepare ourselves for the conversation that we're going to have. And we also recommend this anytime you're going into a transition, even if it's getting ready to go to sleep at night, or even when you're waking up in the morning. It's a really beautiful way to center and ground yourself and just prepare you for whatever it is that's coming next. So with that, I'd like to invite you to put your feet firmly on the ground and connect with the ground, connect with the earth. Just take, if you want to, close your eyes, take a breath in and release. And inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you for joining us. Before I bring my guest on, I want to remind you, so at the end, we're going to try, I'm going to write myself my note right now, to do the 5 things that we're proud of ourselves, 5 things that we're proud of that we have done or that we have accomplished. And they can't be things that have to do with like, I'm really proud of the group project we did. Like, no. Or I'm really proud that my kids did X. No, like something that we have done in this world, what it is that we're proud of. And so I'm telling you this, not just so to hold me accountable and my guests to make sure that we do it, but I would love for you to think about the things that you're proud of having done or who you are in the comments. So I would love to hear the ways that you're proud of yourself. I think it's really important that we celebrate ourselves and that we give others the opportunity and the honor to celebrate us. So with that, I'm going to introduce my guest, and I'm so excited because she has her baby with her. Hi, Heather. Happy February.
Happy February. I cannot believe it's February.
No. So I just have my guests introduce themselves and share anything that you want. We could talk about that new love of your life that you're holding. If you want to talk about work, your family, your challenge, anything that you feel comfortable sharing as way of introduction, please share with us. Who are you in this world?
Well, it's always changing. I feel like who I am is always changing. The most recent iteration of who I am is a dog mom. So that's Loki. We're hoping he'll fall asleep. He's falling asleep. He's only 11 weeks old. I got him when he was 8 weeks old. He was dropped off at the Downey shelter. I'm in Los Angeles, as you know, and he was dropped off at the Downey shelter at 2 days old with his brother. Yeah. So a rescue place here in Los Angeles took him in, introduced him to a mama pup. And at 8 weeks, I was able to take him and foster him and see, could this work? It was like perfect for that first week. Quiet, slept a lot. And he's gotten his spunk since then. So like the 5 to 6 o'clock hour is his like 3 o'clock toddler hour. And then he crashes. So I think he's about to crash for the night. So that's my most recent persona change. I also consider myself a really great auntie. I have 2, and if you follow me on any of the socials, I have 2. Okay, he needs to be held. two nephews, 7 and 4 in Michigan, and a little niece who's going to be turning 3 this summer. Who is? Can you believe that? She, my sister, has been fostering her in my house to adopt her since she was about 8 months. So she's been here and living with us. So that's another big part of my life. A sister. I have a twin brother who is an ER doctor who has been, if you also follow me on social, someone I've talked a lot about during this pandemic. He has worked really hard in his life. He was in the Army National Guard. He got deployed to Iraq when we were in college. He ended up serving as a medic for General Petraeus during the Iraq War. came back, finished school, went to med school, and is now an ER doc. And it's just, it's like sort of mind-boggling to me that someone has given so much of their life and now is giving more, like went to work every day during the pandemic. Until recently, he's been vaccinated, just like potentially put in harm's way. So he's my twin brother, and I always joke because I, have a doctorate and he's an actual doctor. So I always joke, like, if you need some leadership coaching, come to me. But if you actually have like a medical concern, I'll hook you up with him. And I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and a big part of my identity is supporting them and being there for them.
Are they twins also?
Say that again.
Are they twins also?
No. That would be wild. It's two sets of twins. No, my sister is 2 years younger, and my little brother is 6 years younger.
So you have a fan here. I just wanted to leave.
Yeah. Hi, Feliza. How you doing? And then my last persona, I would say, is as a leader, and particularly, I think, a female leader in the space. I spent 10 years of my career as a K-8 principal, assistant principal, another 4 years as a chief learning officer, and only recently got out of like the direct school space. And that was a big move for me, and had to, again, sort of figure out like who I am in this new world. I, for my research, studied the challenges that novice female leaders have socializing into a role, particularly when they're in a role that's historically been masculinized. So that's anything in like administration, healthcare, like anything where when you think about who typically has served in those roles, it tends to be men. And some of that is because of rules and regulations, like, so in education, it wasn't until the 1970s that some administrative programs even let females into them. Like 1971, the University of Virginia still wasn't letting females into administration programs. So some of the history is like real, right? And then some of it is perceived by our social and political context. And so that's sort of like who I would describe myself as. The last is this somebody who's really, really passionate about particularly helping all folks, but definitely female leaders, become their best selves in the work and be able to depersonalize, and when I say depersonalize, like, I don't mean take their self out of the work, but take out the feeling of inadequacy in the work. And that's sort of what I found is that when female leaders are in historically masculinized roles, and they're new and they're operating in a system that is telling them that they're either too female and a leader, and that's a double bind, or a leader, a good leader and a female, and like you can't be both of those things, and they internalize whatever challenges they have as like inadequacies of themselves, and that causes lots of leaders to leave the field soon. So I'm all those things, and like depending on the day, I'm a few or one or the other,
or all of them. I know that just social media that you get to spend, that you do dedicate time to be in Michigan with your babies, and it's always so beautiful to see your pictures and know that you're pouring into those relationships.
Yeah, it was a conscious commitment I made when my first nephew was born, that if I was going to live so far away, I was going to make an effort to be a part of their lives. And, up until this year, like the little one was 3.5, I had seen him on average 7 times a year. So I was like getting to Michigan, and they had only come here once for my graduation. So I was getting to Michigan every other month. And then this year has obviously been hard, but I did go May to August. I spent 3 months there this year, which was probably the biggest blessing of the pandemic, was the opportunity to live with my nephews. And, yesterday I FaceTimed, one of them answered, and the other one wanted to talk. And so he took his mom's phone and FaceTimed me. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why is this? So I answered it, and they were like fighting over who got to. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes they're not excited that I'm FaceTiming, but yeah, it's been really, really important to me that if I'm going to make the choice to live, 3,000 miles away, I'm going to put a lot of effort into being a part of their lives. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that I want to make sure we cover. So I want to talk about this, about your family.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to talk about being a twin, because I don't think we've had that conversation. And also, I really am fascinated by your work with women leaders. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that we hit all three. But going back to your babies, to your kids. So there's a couple things that I'm thinking of. I saw on social media, there's this site that I follow that's just like a whole bunch of memes, and it's called So Mexican, and it's a picture of a baptism of a baby, and then the person was like, "This is the first and last time I ever saw my godparents," or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. Like sometimes that happens in families. Like the godparents are not as involved. But I love that you talk about like intentionally making this choice, both to live far away, but to continue to pour into those relationships. Mm-hmm. And I'm also wondering about like your sister who has chosen to foster a daughter and then is going through the adoption process. Like, can you just talk about your family and what it was? Because I think those characteristics of like family and bonding, and you're foster and adopted your puppy, but like that, there's a special heart way of being. So I'm wondering about your family and if the way that you were raised informed this in you and in your sister.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I wish I kind of had like I don't think I have any photos to show you, but if you looked at me and my siblings, I think the first thing you'd notice is like, none of us look alike. Although my little brother and I, so not my twin, my younger brother and I, we look more like, I definitely don't look like my twin as much. And, I think I had an interesting upbringing because my parents, like, we didn't come from wealth, but certainly in my lifespan, like generational wealth has taken hold. And I think it's a really important note. Like my nephews and my cousins who are a generation younger than me will become adults having a lot of generational wealth. And that was not true for my life growing up. Like both my parents worked. My dad was kicked out of his family, of his home pretty like at 16. And it was, his father had some mental health issues, I think, and he has four boys and they all sort of got kicked out at some age or another. My mom lost her mom pretty early. So my mom lost her mom probably around 20. But my parents met in high school, got married. And I would say like my life was pretty uneventful for most of my life, like very privileged, went to a great school in Michigan. It was about the time that I graduated high school, actually, that my parents started to generate some wealth. But like, I didn't grow up that way. Like I grew up driving like a 1985 Corolla that like half the time my brother and I would have to push into the parking lot. But at least we had a car, but it was not the same car as most of the kids had at my high school. And I went to college, paid my way through college, had student loans, ended up getting some scholarships my junior and senior year that helped, but like my parents weren't paying my way. And we were taught compassion. We were taught kindness. I was not taught about the world, like as it relates to, I think, what I know now.
What do you mean?
I wasn't taught that, that there are differences in the way that people live. Like it was my senior year of high school when little fun fact about me, I was on the debate team for 4 years of high school. And in 12th grade, the resolve for debate was that you improve the US education system. And I went to like a top 10 public high school in Michigan. And it was relatively diverse as well. And I remember being like, why would we, like, why do we need to improve public? And you had to be able to argue affirmatively and negatively. So at like 17, 18, I started to learn about vouchers. Charter schools had just recently come out and weren't a big thing in Michigan back then. I started to learn about where there were opportunity differences in education, but that wasn't like, I didn't have a social justice like instilled in me growing up. That was something I developed sort of post leaving home and going to University of Michigan and really having a number of experiences where I was able to sort of develop my own awareness around race and privilege and class and but certainly compassion and empathy and doing well, doing right in the world. And I became a teacher. My brother became a doctor. My sister is an MFT, a marriage and family therapist. And my little brother is a graphic designer. So like, three of us got that like real desire to help and be in the services. But I don't know that it was something that, in reflection, maybe something about how I was raised. But I don't think it was a big part. I think we just maybe it's a little bit more of nature for us.
Well, but I think it has to be something that all of you like going into those industries of really like, there's a component of healing.
Yeah.
As well as like support for other human beings.
Yeah.
In all of the fields. And I think, with the graphic design, depending on the kind of work and the clients that he works with, there's so much potential for that also, right?
Yeah. The one thing that I'm reflecting on, my mom was an occupational therapist for the first part of my life. And she specifically specialized with working with kids who had autism and like pretty severe autism. And so that might be a big part of it, that like we were taught early on about differences as it relates to abilities and mental health. And my mom did a lot of work with kids with autism and a lot of work in schools. And so that could have been a part of it. That's like, she stopped working probably by the time my younger brother was born. And so it wasn't like for a long part of my life, but it was the formative years of my life. And I can see how that might have been a foundational piece.
It has to be. And then I went into education and the work that you chose to do in education and the schools that you chose to work with. I think really they take on, you chose, do you want to talk about the schools that you worked in and some of the work that you did? Because I think that also speaks to this component that I'm seeing in your description of your family of being passionate and really caring for others in our world.
Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. Like my poor siblings growing up, I would make them go into the basement at like 5 and 6 and play school with me. And I ultimately went to the University of Michigan and I majored in English and psychology because there was a big push back then to like not get a major in education, but to have a certificate. So I got my teaching certificate in both English and psych, student taught in Michigan. And then ultimately, because of a series of experiences I had between going to U of M and graduating from U of M, knew that I wanted to be sort of a part of a group of folks who were moving the needle in education. So I actually joined Teach for America, even though I had a teaching certificate. And LA was pretty far down my list, actually. I was hoping to go to like Chicago or DC or Baltimore, like somewhere relatively close to home. I had never in my life been to LA, and except maybe flying through one time, I think. And I remember getting the envelope.
How old were you when you made the move here or to LA?
I would have been like 21 or 22. Yeah.
Fresh out of college.
I finished my degree. I had to take one summer course because I had 3 degrees, and finished like 5 years of classes in 4.5 or whatever. And I remember I had a red Corolla, that Toyota Corolla, that packed up with my friend Annie and drove across the country. And we did like a 7-day trip. We got through to Denver pretty quick, because basically between like Michigan and Denver is like 25 hours of flat land through middle America. We got to Denver and then we took our time. You know, we went to like Moab and Zion and Bryce and Vegas, and then drove into Long Beach. I remember June 26, 2005. So never been here. Decided to come here. I spent my first 2 years at the Fauché Learning Center, which is a K-12 school right near USC in Los Angeles. I taught middle school English. Met some of my best friends there, and probably, you know, Vince Womack and Jennifer Saporito, had it not been for them, like probably wouldn't still be in LA. Vince went to U of M probably 25 years before me. Somebody told him, hey, there's a young woman here who's probably 22 and went to U of M, and they took me under their wing, and really became mentors. And then that was around the time of the significant budget fallout in California. And so through some connections, got recruited to go be an assistant principal at Camino Nuevo, which is a network of charter schools in Los Angeles. It was a really hard decision because, like I said, I am a teacher. Like with all my being, I'm a teacher. And I didn't necessarily want to leave the classroom yet, but I was about to be RIFed. And this was just too good of an opportunity to turn up. Like at this point, I was 23 maybe, and being offered an assistant principal role.
Wow.
Yeah, Anna, if you talk to Ana Ponce, I don't know if she's watching, but if you talk to Ana Ponce, one of her favorite stories to tell about me is the day she found out they hired a 23-year-old assistant principal. And she, as she says it now, she eats crow for her reaction. But I spent 3 years as the assistant principal of the Harvard site at the time, Camino Nuevo Harvard, K-8, and then became the principal and spent the next 6 years as a senior principal, doing some mentorship. And it, probably will always be those 7 years I was principal, like my best professional experience. We had an amazing school. Really rooted in the community, amazing staff. People, I would have 300 people wanted to come teach there. It was known as an excellent place for teachers, but more importantly, because it was an excellent place for kids. Like we believed that kids deserved a school that welcomed them, that was theirs, that honored who they were and what they brought, and what their families brought. And I still have really amazing relationships. 2 days ago got a call from a student I had like 13 years ago telling me, hey, I think I want to be a teacher. He's 27 now, which is and I was like, oh, you want to be a teacher? That's so great. He's like, yeah, I think I want to do Teach for America. And I was like, did you know I was a Teach for America teacher? He's like, he had no idea. But he, just called me. They have my number. They reach out. So spent 10 years at that school. When I left, I had seen like the kids who were 8th graders were kindergarteners. My second year, my first year. So saw them grow up. And then went and became the chief learning officer for that network. Really proud of the work I did. When I went into that role, we had sort of disparate experiences across Camino. And I worked to really, I think, turn sort of a network of individual schools into a network with a common purpose. And by the time I left, we had seen the most significant gains on the SBAC that organization has ever seen across every school and every grade level. We had over 10% growth in math and 10% growth in ELA at every single school. and in every single grade level. It was incredible. And it didn't happen by chance. A lot of work went into it. And ultimately, like, to be able to walk away and say, okay, we did that.
What was some of the magic in that sauce? And I'm going to say outside of, which is really big, but outside of staff. So I think you mentioned like, and I will agree with you, like any system, because any system, education or not, that has that kind of growth.
Yeah.
It's really, really phenomenal. And there have been billions of dollars spent in books and professional development for people to figure that out. Right. So aside from the people, which is really important, what was some of the magic of that sauce that you guys figured out?
Well, the answer is the people, but it's not bringing in better people. It's building your own people. So, I mean, the very first thing I noticed when I started walking the other schools after I left my school was that we all said we did the same thing, and everybody's definition of what that was looked vastly different. And so actually what was happening across the schools looked very different, even though we all said we did the same thing. And it was a 3-year process. Like, I remember telling the board, I'm not going to bring you results for the next 2 years, because if you want results, it's a different strategy and it's a short-term fix. But I promised to deliver results in year 3, and here's how we're going to get here. And like, here are the sort of indicators you'll see along the way. So, I mean, a lot of it was focusing on mindset for one. So like, what does it mean when we say that we're a network of schools? And if one of our school is failing kids, all of our schools are failing kids, like getting people to turn away from the individualistic mindset that is prevalent in our country. Starting to get people to work together differently, adopting curriculum. So historically, we had really brought in some great talent, and they don't necessarily want to do a scripted curriculum. Like, if they wanted to do a scripted curriculum, they were going to go to a school with a scripted curriculum. But I had to get folks to understand that, like, putting brand new teachers in front of kids without a curriculum is malpractice. Like, it is not okay for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing to have to try to figure out what they're doing and teach kids at the same time. Like, and so for staff who are more veteran, like, once they demonstrate both the pedagogical knowledge, do that work well, and they can start to make really good choices about what they're doing, they can use other approaches and supplement the work they're doing. But we needed a curriculum. So particularly for math, we brought in a new curriculum, and then we did a ton of training. Like if Anna's listening, she'll also have something to say about this. But I think one of my biggest victories in that organization was getting us. We are a unionized charter. I think it's brought a lot of value to the organization to be able to professionalize and work with our union in ways that looks different than what it looks like in some ways across the country. I think Camino's union is a model of potential unionization for the future that is about, like, both professionalizing the field and holding themselves accountable for kids. And I've worked closely with them my entire time at Camino, including, leading bargaining towards the end of my tenure there. And one of my biggest wins was getting us to, and this is controversial, so let me say what I did and then tell you why I think it's a win. We had a 193-day school year with 7 days of professional development, which basically is 5 days before the school year starts and then a couple days throughout. And I just think to do this work really well, you have to have way more embedded professional development, and you have to have the time to train teachers. But, Anna was really committed to our extended school year. And the argument that I was able to make is, like, every day we have a kid in a teacher's classroom who is not doing good work is a bad day for that kid. And, like, more bad days doesn't equal a better education. And so we actually were able to, and the union came to the table at the first bargaining and said, we actually just want to cut the school days down to 180. We want to be in line with the district. We don't really need professional development. And I was actually able to influence both parties that not only do we need professional development, but we need the same amount of days. And so our teacher contract remained at 200. We had 15 days of professional development and 185 days for kids. And I remember when we got to the table where we were going to make that final decision, it was so anticlimactic. Like, my partners at the unions, on the union side, were like, great, we think it's great. We're totally, yep, we're with you. And Anna was like, okay. But I had done the work. Like, I had put in 3 years of work to get people to buy into that. And
so
I remember
anticlimactic is actually the win, like that that you put in.
Yeah. So I think that alone,
everybody had bought in, like it was all done. That's the way.
And it wasn't, we didn't just then do more trainings for people. We also then trained a whole cadre of teachers to lead that professional development for their own teachers. And we divided the days so that half the school were in session and half the schools weren't. And the professional development was in classrooms with kids in a job embedded way. So, I like don't agree. There's the what's that TNTP report that's out? I forget what the report is, but it basically says we waste billions of dollars on PD every year. I actually think we don't agree on what we mean when we talk about PD, and we need to think differently.
One of the things that you talked about, and I think that this goes just across the board, and I would also say in relationships, in family, is you had said, like what was happening in our school, everyone said that it was happening everywhere.
Yeah.
But, so it's coming to common definitions.
Yeah.
And having a common, like creating that common understanding of what it is that you're talking about, and knowing, like coming to a point where that the other person and you have that same common understanding. Yep. And I think that's the same work. Like, not having that causes issues in families. It causes issues in relationships. It causes like work relationship issues. It can like cause you to lose focus in a lot of different ways. So I think having that common understanding is critically important. So what I'm seeing though is, so then segueing into leadership development and leadership of women, how did this journey we had? I mean, an assistant principal at 23, I can understand like legitimately why Anna would be concerned. Me too.
To be clear, I'm an old soul though. I think I'm on like my 8th life. So I'm like very, I'm actually like 90 at heart. I mean, I think the journey of really trying to understand, like, what does it mean to be a female leader in this space? What does it mean to be a white female leader in this space? And what does it mean to be a young white female leader in this space?
Well, and a young white female leader who chose to move to Los Angeles and predominantly Latino populations and populations that are filled with predominantly brown kids, but making that, yes, talk about that.
Yeah, I have always felt like when you have a talent and a skill that you have an obligation. I feel like I personally have an obligation to use my talent and skill to do better in the world. And for me personally, that has been partnering in communities to offer high quality educational options. And I just am not fulfilled by doing that work in communities where there is affluence, or there is not like people are banging down the doors to be leaders in communities like where I grew up, because it's a cush job, like, and that is not my passion. I think that I know I'm a skilled leader, and I know I have the ability to be in relation and partnership with communities, and our schools in our Black and brown communities deserve leaders who lead that way. They deserve leaders who believe that they're there in service of the community.
So I think there's that one part of that understanding for yourself, which that's number one. Understanding ourselves, understanding our motivations, understanding our strengths, understanding our talents, understanding our, like, that's number one. But then taking that, I think, and expanding out to other women. And I think also, like, there's the need to have women of color in positions of leadership as well. How do you, like, what has been your work in that, and in bringing other women with you and in elevating the voice of other women?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of see that as my life's work at this point. And that has evolved. So I think it was like back in 2010 where I remember I had just become a principal. The work was real hard. It was really hard. And I remember after one particularly hard day that I thought to myself, like, how am I going to sustain in this work for a long, like, I think it was my first or second year as a principal. And I was driving home just mentally exhausted. And from that moment on, like, it was a wake up, it was like rock bottom, right? From that moment on, I have been obsessed with figuring out how to help people sustain. And that corresponded with the 2016 election, which also corresponded with my own doctoral journey, where I realized, like, oh, it's not just about leaders sustaining. Like, leaders are actually relatively sustaining okay, male leaders in particular. It's actually about women leaders and leaders of color, and helping them and me within that sort of circle figure out what will it take to sustain. And I had my own experience in 2016 where I was being evaluated by someone, and in the evaluation, it wrote, this person who was a female leader wrote, "You are intimidating," or no, you are. It was either intimidating or people find you off-putting.
To you?
And I remember, oh yeah, to me. And I was like, wow, I like am lacking some self-awareness right now, which I perceive myself to be a highly self-aware person. So it was a moment where I was like, this description doesn't match how I see myself in the world. And after a lot of work on that, what I came to realize is that just because people find you intimidating doesn't mean you're intimidating. And just because people are
intimidated doesn't mean that you're intimidating.
That's right. Just because somebody feels threatened doesn't mean you're threatening.
Right.
And that it was actually the fact that I was a kick butt leader and a woman, a female, that was causing me to be intimidating to this person who had internalized their own, belief about what women should be. And so since then, like, have made it my mission to be, in particular, a sponsor to other females, and in particular, a sponsor to female leaders of color. And I could show you my text string. I am, like, always trying to get somebody a job, or like find somebody a role. And it looked like, a couple things. It looked like bringing in an organization named the Teaching Well, who's somebody an organization I've worked really closely with, who did a ton of work with our leaders across sustaining. But one of the things they did that I think was one of the most magical opportunities that I provided was a mom's group, because at one point I looked at our principals and was like, oh, 5 of the 7 are women of color, and they all have kids under 2. And so they did a year-long affinity group for new moms, just the principals, where monthly they met, and they covered topics like no mom guilt, or no guilt momming, and like how to leave it, how to communicate with your partner that you need equal help. That's one thing. I think another way that's tangibly shown up is like naming for some of the leaders who I've worked with when they're internalizing their own areas of growth as inadequacies, or internalizing sort of the world we live in. So I remember one principal in particular asked to meet with me, sat me down, and told me she was pregnant, and then started bawling. And I was like, why are we crying? Like, why are we crying? And it was because she felt like it would take away from her ability to be successful in her role. And I think about that in a moment where, let's say this principal had any other coach, right? A coach who like hasn't done the work of thinking about what are the ways that we respond to females in the field that reinforces their beliefs about themselves in the world. And so I could have been a boss at that moment that was like, well, it might, I see what you're saying. It might set you back, and like trying to be empathetic in that moment, which is actually just like, that's benevolent sexism, and it's actually probably more harmful than the boss that's like, yeah, I mean, why would you want to have a kid, but instead I chose to hold up a mirror and say, like, let's just unpack right now why you think you need to apologize for having a child and being a leader. And that is a fundamentally different response, and gives a different level of permission for a woman to show up in a role and be fully female and fully leader. And I don't think we have enough mentors, coaches, bosses who have done the work, even ourselves as females and ourselves as females of color, done the work to unpack the internalized oppression we have from living in this world to be able to effectively support women. And so, I mean, that's just two examples. But I have, it is my life's work long term, to do this work. And, I work where I work for now and continue to try to do good work there as well. But ultimately, like, my dream is to have my own coaching shtick, and offer executive coaching that's really focused on female leaders. Yeah.
You as of yet have not chosen to have a family outside of Loki and the family.
Loki.
Is your work a part of that decision? And who you are in your work, or is it just a separate?
It's a good question. Probably for a long time, my work was a big part of it, because as a leader and from a young age, being responsible for so many humans, like that's what makes school leadership so hard, is that on like any given day, I had to respond to thousands of people who needed you. And so, there wasn't a ton of space to think about that. But I also just have not, I honestly, being really candid, I've never had a desire to have I've never had a moment where I wish I had my own kids. I get a lot of fulfillment out of my nephews and nieces, out of my friends' kids, who all call me auntie. They call me auntie. My own nephews and nieces call me Heather, which is hilarious. And there was like one or two moments in the last 5 years where I've thought about adopting, and I think that's a route that I would potentially still go down in the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years. But I don't know. It's not something that's been instilled in me, and I think you're probably right that my work was that for me in a lot of ways.
Well, I think also the children that you've chosen to love, like my aunt who said hello earlier, she never chose to have kids, but I needed her in my life, and my brother needed her. And so aside from us, there have been so many people who she has loved in this life, and has loved in such a beautiful, deep way that she may not have been able to do if she had had that siphoned off that time for her own family. So, like all your babies.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. But here's the best part. I get to leave them.
Yeah.
Come home and not have to deal with that. It is the best part. I think it's the best of both worlds, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have all that love, like, and the relationship. That relationship. I was talking about this with my comadre the other day because I have one of my goddaughters. I talk to her every Friday. We have a standing date, so we get to like she's just turned 7. So we do crafts together. We read a book, and we just chit chat. And Luna, my granddaughter, has been here, and she's had a really hard time with my conversations with another, giving my love to somebody else. But what my comadre and I were talking about was that it's still so important for me to have that time and build that relationship with my goddaughter. Like, like Luna needs, well, she'll be fine. That individual time, it's so critical for development for kids to have that person that's outside of their parents, that their parents know, that their parents trust, but that they can form that bond and that relationship with. And I think that, because you have so many.
I do. I have a long list. No, I feel very fulfilled in my life. And the pandemic has certainly been hard, but I think in many ways, like not having a family in this house with me. Well, that's why I have Loki now.
Yeah. You know what? I just say, I don't know what we would have done if my older girls had been younger and we had to go through a pandemic. I know. I don't think my house would be standing. I don't know. I literally don't know what we would have done. So Heather, so in all of this, because you do so much work, right? Like, obviously you're brilliant. Obviously you're great.
Oh, I didn't mean to agree to that. I was just
no, be proud, be proud. But what are the things that you do to take care of yourself? Like, what are the things that you do for you? Because so much that you give to other people. And when you said that about your text chain, I imagine you have multiple text chains. School, so what are the things that you do to just take care of yourself?
Well, I mean, it's been like an evolving process this year in particular. But if you talk to anyone who knows me, like, the first thing they'll tell you is that I'm an avid spinner, indoor cycling spinner. And so for many years, that was Soul Cycle. One of my very good friends is a teacher, and I would take her class multiple times a week. That's obviously been harder. So I did buy an in-home bike, and I've
one of those fancy phones.
Yeah, it's over here. It's in my office. So I look at it, every day, like, and it's been great. I rode for a half hour at 6:30 this morning when this dog woke me up, and then fell back asleep, which is what he does every morning. So I work out at least 5 times a week, if not 6. When we can, I travel a lot. I do, 1 to 2 big trips a year with a group of friends, and then lots of little trips to my family. And spending time with family is a big thing for me, as we talked about. And then I have great friends here. Like, I have really amazing friends, which is why when I had my brief, people don't know, but I briefly moved to Oakland in January of 2020, only to be derailed by the pandemic, and then move back here. But I've lived here for 16 years of my life, and have great friends and network and spend time with them. And then the last thing is I spend a lot of time alone. And for me, as somebody who has developed an I personality, an introverted personality, after years of leadership at the executive level, at the school leadership level, it is very important that I have downtime. And so there's actually nothing better than a Friday night where I'm like, okay, I have nothing to do this week. The pandemic has been very good for me in that way, where it's I just get 48 hours to decompress. So I spend a lot of time, read, hang out. Now I get to hang out with this dog who's going to be huge in a couple months, training him. Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing my comadre and I had talked about, she said she felt like the pandemic was almost like her grandma when she would say, like, if you don't sit yourself down.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of it also, just that life that we were living, right? That was so much in society of like, go, 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 go,
Yeah.
go, go. And I know in your work, you were looking at traveling a lot. I mean, you were already traveling a lot, but that go, 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 and to just be,
yeah. I mean, I was probably traveling 3 times a month, if not more. And then I was commuting from LA to Oakland for work for 6 months leading up to the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, I went from like 52 trips a year to I was in DC when the pandemic really started picking up and got called back from DC.
Together.
I think we weren't together, but I think we saw each other.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there. I was there for the National Alliance Conference Program Committee, and you were there for a NISL fellowship, and we got some breakfast. I think. Yeah, we crossed paths.
Oh yes. So you know what? I don't. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So yes.
Yeah. And then the pandemic hit and came back. Yeah. I mean, there are so many things I can't wait for the pandemic to be over, but like the time to sit and be with myself, I'm looking forward to that, continuing. Yeah.
That. So before we go, it's almost time to close. We're going to share 5 things that we're really proud of. And they can't be things like, they have to be real, like things that we've done that we are proud of. It can't be like, oh, I'm so proud that I helped my niece walk. No.
Wait, so give me a real example then. Like,
okay, so let me see. I got to think of some fresh ones.
The reason I'm laughing is because I did potty train my nephew. That's why I'm like, wait, really? I can't use no.
Well, because I mean, I think that if you can put it in the framework of your work in it, that really is a big thing for them.
I probably won't be in the top 5, but I did do that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm really proud of, I'm just going to use one that I said before. So I'm a new plant mom. And I am somebody that was not able to keep plants alive. And I got very like overconfident with, I got maybe in a 2-inch pot, a spider plant who is now, she's actually behind me, and she's become, there we go. She's become the mother of all of these plants. But now I have plants all in the house and they're all still alive. I'm learning them. And also, so to me, that's really important. Like they're healthy, they're growing. And I'm also sharing that with Luna, like that love. So it's my way of connecting with the earth, and being able to share that with her is something that I'm proud of.
I love that.
So I'll do, you want to go?
No, go ahead. You go. I need things.
What you think? Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I said 5. Okay.
Yeah, dude, 5 is a lot. It's ambitious.
So I'm going to say, so this one is kind of, it's going to sound like it might be about my kids, but I'm going to phrase it because it's really about me. So I have a book that's coming out. And one of the things that I've had a really hard time with is really acknowledging and accepting like the accomplishments. And I, over my adult life, have really like learned to take in when people tell me good things. Like it's just something that I've had to work on. But sometimes when it happens, I literally get frozen. Like I literally don't know what to do. So so this, I want to put this in context. And just ignore my phone ringing. So my daughters wanted to, in a really beautiful way, acknowledge how proud they were of me for having written the book. And it was very hard for me. So they gave me this beautiful gift that I was not expecting. And I was so moved, I got frozen. Like I didn't even want to open it. I didn't even want to, like, it's just something that happens to me. And so I'm proud of myself for pushing through that. And I have it, they bought me one of those cricket machines.
Yeah.
I haven't opened it and set it up yet, but I like am very much aware of that process that I'm working through and moving through. So I'm really proud of myself for the acknowledgement and for working through it. I'm also very proud of myself because I still fit in the sweater. I was when I because the pandemic, mama's not moving very much. But I think so. I'm going to move over to the 4. Is I've still been, doing my walking. I missed a couple days just because of my schedule, but every day, and I get back on. So I have a tendency of being that person that if I miss one day, oh, I failed, I'm done, I can't do it. And I've been like just continuing to be gentle with myself and just like keep getting back on. So I missed 2 or 3 days last week, but I was on today, and I know that I'll be on tomorrow and I'll be on the next day. So I'm really proud of that. And then number 5, I'm really proud of starting to like dream in a big way for myself.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave that one at that.
I love it. I love it.
Your turn.
Okay, so the first one might be obvious. I'm very proud that I finished my doctorate. And, just a shout out to, I've called out Anna a couple of times, but she, for me, was a really big mentor in my career trajectory. And I still remember going into her office and being like, time doesn't stop. You can either go get your doctorate now and be done in 3 years, or 3 years from now you could not have a doctorate. So what's it going to be? And and her sponsorship, I think, both helped me get into a really great program and then get me there. I probably would not have done it on my own. And she was on my committee. I'm proud of the fact that I just got this promotion that we did. My role is chief people officer at New School Venture Fund. I came in there as a partner. I had, my past includes a traumatic interview experience. And so when I was asked if I would consider the role again and knew that I would be interviewing, it took a lot of self-work to be like, yeah, I'll just put myself out there again. And so I was both proud that I overcame that and that I did it and got the job. I just finished like my 4th Whole30, I think, in January. I don't know if you're familiar with Whole30, but it's like essentially a very restrictive, not a diet, but like way of life that I tend to do every January that includes like no drinking, no sugar, no dairy, no lagoon. I mean, it's like a lot. But I needed it, particularly in this pandemic. And so, particularly like January 6th, when we just had Yahoo, like that moment, I was like, I might fail this month, but I held strong. I had my sparkling water and did not eat any bread. So I'm proud that I completed that and feel good. I've run 2 half marathons in my life. The last one was like 2 years ago. And maybe it's time, although I'm pushing the age where my knees will start to hurt. So I don't know, maybe not. And then the last thing is, I am a really loyal person. And I have some really, really great relationships with folks who I've been able to nurture and keep over the years. And I'm proud of that. I think it takes energy to do. And I think particularly in like the last 10 years of my professional life, I've put a lot of energy into maintaining strong relationships with folks. And I think I have good relationships with lots of people across the country. So really proud of that.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for for sharing everything, but also all those things. Like, I'm so glad that you're proud of yourself for those accomplishments and for who you are.
Yeah.
And like knowing that you're loyal, it's just so beautiful. Thank you for being with us tonight, Heather.
Thank you for having me. And Loki, I just gotta show you because I mean it's too much. Where is he?
Oh, he's out. He is out with his belly up. I cannot wait to see him continuing to grow. Yeah. Well, thank you, Heather, for being with us. I'm going to go ahead and sign off and say good night to everybody. Thank you for being with us. Know that you are loved and cared for always. I will see you on Wednesday night. And don't forget, Dr. Anjali's show is on Fridays. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.